There are moments in history when the world appears to be moving normally on the surface, while beneath that surface something far deeper is unfolding, something ancient, something written long before modern governments, modern economies, and modern technologies ever existed. We live in one of those moments now. Markets shift overnight. Artificial intelligence reshapes entire industries. Global alliances fracture. And millions of people quietly feel that the ground beneath civilization is beginning to move. Yet long before satellites orbited the Earth and algorithms predicted human behavior, an ancient voice recorded a vision that spoke about the structure of the heavens themselves and the unseen order governing the universe. That voice belonged to Enoch, a man whose story appears only briefly in the familiar pages of Genesis, yet whose revelations would echo through centuries of hidden manuscripts and whispered traditions. Genesis 5:7-24 gives only a mysterious line, saying that Enoch walked with God, and then he was no more, because God took him. It is one of the most cryptic statements in the entire Bible, a verse so short yet so heavy with mystery that generations of scholars have wondered what exactly happened during that walk with God. According to ancient writings, preserved outside the traditional canon, that walk did not remain on the earth, because Enoch was taken through the structure of the heavens themselves. He saw realms layered above our reality, dimensions of order, judgment, and divine administration that govern the fate of nations and the destiny of humanity. And if what Enoch recorded is true, then the events we see unfolding across the world today may not be random at all, but part of a pattern that heaven has understood from the beginning. The ancient text, known as the Book of Enoch, begins with a declaration that feels almost unsettling when read in the context of our modern age. It says that the words of Enoch were not meant for his own generation, but for a distant generation that would face a time of great upheaval and transformation. Think about that for a moment, because the world we inhabit today fits that description with eerie precision. Entire industries collapse, while new technologies rise overnight. People who once believed their careers were secure suddenly find themselves displaced by automation, and societies that once appeared stable now move through cycles of political tension and economic uncertainty. The same pattern repeats across continents, from Africa to Europe, from Asia to the Americas, as if the world itself has entered a season of shaking. Throughout Scripture, seasons of shaking have always preceded seasons of revelation. Because when the structures people depend on begin to tremble, humanity becomes more willing to look upward. The story of Joseph in Genesis follows this same pattern, because before Joseph ruled in Egypt, he first experienced betrayal, imprisonment, and years of uncertainty that appeared to destroy his destiny. Yet every setback was secretly positioning him for a moment when global famine would require a leader who could see patterns others could not. Joseph's preparation happened in obscurity, in prison cells and forgotten places, long before the palace doors ever opened. The same pattern appears again in the story of Enoch, because his journey through the heavens reveals that God's perspective on time is vastly different from ours. When Enoch began his ascent through the heavens, the first thing he encountered was not the peaceful paradise many people imagine when they think about heaven. Instead, he was taken into a realm where the mechanisms of creation could be seen operating with breathtaking precision. A place where the movements of the stars, the winds, and the cycles of the earth were governed by divine order. According to the ancient narrative, angels showed him storehouses of the elements themselves, chambers where the forces of nature were organized and directed across the world below. To a modern mind, this might sound symbolic. Yet when we consider the complexity of the universe, revealed through modern science, the idea of a cosmic administration no longer feels impossible. Think about the systems that sustain life on Earth, from atmospheric circulation to ocean currents to gravitational forces that keep planets in motion. Our civilization only recently began to understand the delicate balance required for life to exist. Yet the Book of Enoch described a structured universe thousands of years ago. Enoch was shown that nothing in creation operates randomly, because every movement has purpose, and every season is governed by timing. This revelation alone challenges the way we interpret the chaos of the modern world, because if the universe itself operates with divine precision, then the upheavals happening across nations may also be part of a larger transition. The rise and fall of economies, the emergence of new technologies, and the reshaping of global power structures may reflect the same principle Joseph witnessed when famine reshaped the ancient world. As Enoch continued his journey, he began to realize that the heavens were not a single realm, but a layered structure, each level revealing a deeper dimension of divine order. The first heaven revealed the physical mechanisms of creation, but it also exposed the consequences of rebellion among celestial beings known as the Watchers. According to the ancient account, these Watchers were angels assigned to observe the earth and guide humanity. Yet they eventually abandoned their appointed roles and interfered with the human world. Their actions introduced corruption, violence, and forbidden knowledge that accelerated the moral collapse of early civilizations. When you read these passages with modern eyes, you cannot help but notice how closely they mirror humanity's ongoing struggle with knowledge and power. Every generation inherits technologies and discoveries that can either uplift society or destroy it, depending on the wisdom of those who wield them. Artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and global surveillance systems represent forms of knowledge that previous generations could never imagine. Yet humanity now holds these tools without always possessing the moral framework to guide their use. The story of the Watchers warns that knowledge, without alignment to divine purpose, can become a force of destruction rather than progress. Enoch witnessed the aftermath of that rebellion in the first heaven, where imprisoned Watchers awaited judgment for the chaos they unleashed upon the earth. It was a sobering introduction to the spiritual realities operating behind the visible world. But the vision did not end there, because Enoch was then lifted higher, moving beyond the realm of natural forces into a dimension where the consequences of human actions were recorded and evaluated. This second level of heaven revealed vast regions where souls awaited the fulfillment of justice, places of separation where the righteous and the wicked experienced entirely different conditions. Enoch described chambers filled with light for those who lived in alignment with divine law, while other regions held shadows of sorrow for those who had chosen violence and corruption. The imagery may sound dramatic, yet it carries a powerful message about accountability that transcends time. Every civilization eventually confronts the moral weight of its decisions, whether those decisions involve how leaders treat their people or how societies respond to injustice. When you examine world history through this lens, patterns begin to emerge that mirror the moral structure Enoch described. Empires rise with confidence, believing their power will last forever. Yet eventually their corruption erodes the very foundations that once made them strong. The fall of ancient kingdoms, the collapse of colonial powers, and even the shifting influence of modern superpowers all demonstrate how fragile human authority can be when it loses its moral compass. The Book of Enoch suggests that these cycles are not merely political accidents, but reflections of a deeper system of divine justice, operating beyond human awareness. What makes Enoch's testimony even more fascinating is that his journey through the heavens occurred during a time when humanity had very little understanding of the universe. There were no telescopes to reveal galaxies, no satellites to measure atmospheric layers, and no scientific institutions to analyze cosmic forces. Yet the text speaks about multiple heavens, structured realms above the earth, that serve different functions within creation. Later Jewish and early Christian traditions would expand on this idea, describing 7 heavens that form a pathway from the physical world into the direct presence of God. Each level reveals greater authority, greater clarity, and greater proximity to divine truth. When Enoch looked down from those heights, he saw the earth as a place of preparation, a realm where human beings were learning lessons about obedience, stewardship, and leadership. This perspective reframes the hardships many people experience in their lives, because seasons of struggle often serve as training grounds for greater responsibilities. Joseph could not have governed Egypt if he had never learned patience in prison, and David could not have ruled Israel if he had never faced giants in the wilderness. The same principle applies to individuals living today, especially those who feel like their lives have been delayed or disrupted by forces beyond their control. The hidden message woven through Enoch's journey is that heaven measures preparation differently than the world does. Consider the generation alive today, a generation witnessing rapid transformation across every aspect of life. Entire job markets are shifting as automation replaces tasks once performed by human workers, forcing millions to rethink their skills and their purpose. Young leaders emerge from unexpected places, while traditional institutions struggle to maintain relevance in a digital age. Economic power moves between continents, reshaping global influence in ways that analysts struggle to predict. For many people, these changes create anxiety because the old pathways to stability appear to be dissolving. Yet when you examine these events through the lens of prophetic history, another interpretation becomes possible. Moments of disruption often signal the beginning of a transition that prepares new leaders to rise. Joseph's rise in Egypt occurred during a global food crisis that forced Pharaoh to look beyond his traditional advisors for someone with divine insight. In the same way, the current restructuring of economies and technologies may be preparing a generation of leaders who combine spiritual wisdom with practical intelligence. Enoch's vision of the heavens suggests that heaven itself observes these turning points, because the destiny of nations often hinges on whether prepared individuals step forward when the moment arrives. The deeper Enoch traveled into the heavens, the more he realized that history on earth unfolds within a framework already known to God. Angels explained to him that time itself operates like a tapestry, where individual events weave together to form patterns that only become visible from a higher vantage point. From the ground, people see isolated moments of crisis or success, but from heaven those moments align into larger movements, guiding humanity toward its ultimate destiny. This perspective transforms the way we interpret both personal struggles and global upheaval. What feels like chaos from the human viewpoint may actually be a period of rearrangement designed to position individuals and nations for a future they cannot yet see. When Joseph sat in prison, he could not have imagined that his ability to interpret dreams would soon determine the survival of entire populations during famine. Yet heaven had already arranged the pieces of that story long before Joseph understood his role in it. Enoch's ascent revealed that the same principle governs the entire world, because divine intelligence observes history from a vantage point far beyond human comprehension. And if that is true, then the shaking happening across modern society may be preparing something far greater than the headlines reveal. As Enoch continued ascending beyond the realms that governed the natural forces of the earth and the chambers where human souls awaited judgment, he was drawn into another dimension of heaven, where time itself seemed to move differently. The ancient text describes this level as a place where the rhythms of creation were measured with astonishing precision, where angelic beings monitored the cycles of the sun, the moon, and the stars as if they were custodians of a cosmic clock. Enoch observed pathways through which celestial bodies traveled, routes that ensured the balance of seasons and the stability of life on earth. To modern readers, this might sound like poetic symbolism. Yet when we think about the mathematical precision that keeps galaxies rotating and planets aligned, the description feels strangely compatible with what modern science has begun to discover. The heavens are not chaotic. They operate with laws so exact that a slight alteration in gravitational forces could destroy entire solar systems. Enoch's testimony suggests that behind those laws stands an intelligence far greater than anything humanity has yet understood. The angels guiding him explained that every cycle in creation serves a purpose, because the movement of time itself is connected to the unfolding destiny of the earth. When you reflect on that idea in the context of today's rapidly changing world, it becomes clear that the timing of events may not be accidental. The sudden acceleration of technology, the shifting of economic power between nations, and the awakening of spiritual curiosity among millions of people might all represent movements within a larger timetable written long before our generation was born. In this third heaven, Enoch began to see records, vast archives that contained the history of humanity and the intentions of every heart. The text describes heavenly tablets where actions, choices, and even hidden motives were preserved, as if the universe itself were a living memory. It was here that Enoch understood a truth that echoes throughout Scripture. Nothing done on earth truly disappears. Every act of kindness, every injustice, every moment of courage or betrayal leaves an imprint that heaven remembers even when the world forgets. In an age where digital technology records almost everything we do online, this concept suddenly feels less abstract than it might have centuries ago. Today's societies create massive databases tracking human behavior, from financial transactions to social interactions. And yet those systems are only primitive reflections of the cosmic record Enoch described. According to his vision, heaven itself holds the ultimate archive, one that cannot be altered or erased by human power. This revelation carried profound implications for leaders, nations, and individuals alike, because it means that history is not merely written by the victors, but also preserved by divine oversight. Empires may attempt to rewrite their past, governments may conceal their failures, and powerful figures may believe their secrets will remain buried forever. Yet Enoch saw that the universe itself keeps an account that transcends human manipulation. For anyone seeking justice in a world that often feels unfair, that realization carries both warning and hope. But the journey did not end with observation alone, because Enoch was then taken into a realm where the consequences of rebellion among heavenly beings were revealed in even greater detail. In this fourth heaven, he encountered a place of profound tension, a region where light and shadow seemed to collide in silent conflict. Angels explained that long before humanity built civilizations, a division occurred among spiritual powers assigned to guide creation. Some remained faithful to their purpose, while others sought influence over the earth in ways that distorted the natural order. These fallen beings, often referred to in ancient writings as the Watchers, introduced knowledge that humanity was not prepared to handle. They taught warfare, manipulation, and practices that corrupted both society and the environment. When you examine the trajectory of human history, the pattern of knowledge outrunning wisdom appears again and again. Technologies emerge that promise progress, yet without ethical guidance, they often magnify conflict instead of resolving it. The 20th century alone witnessed scientific breakthroughs that improved medicine and communication. But the same century also produced weapons capable of destroying entire cities in moments. Enoch's account suggests that such contradictions reflect a deeper struggle between forces that shape human choices behind the scenes. This does not remove responsibility from humanity, but it reminds us that the battle between wisdom and corruption operates on multiple levels of reality. Standing in that realm, Enoch saw imprisoned spirits who had once held positions of authority among the Watchers. Their downfall served as a warning about the dangers of power divorced from obedience to divine purpose. The angels explained that leadership in heaven operates differently than leadership on earth, because authority is given not for personal elevation, but for the preservation of order and life. When beings misuse that authority, The consequences ripple across generations. That lesson resonates strongly in the modern era, where leaders in politics, technology, and finance hold influence capable of shaping the future of entire populations. Decisions made in corporate boardrooms or government councils can affect millions of lives, determining whether societies move towards stability or chaos. Enoch's vision reveals that heaven pays close attention to such moments, because leadership carries a weight that extends far beyond personal ambition. The rise and fall of nations often begins with the character of those entrusted with power. History repeatedly demonstrates this principle, from the collapse of ancient empires, corrupted by excess, to the emergence of reformers who transformed societies by aligning their leadership with moral conviction. The heavenly order Enoch observed suggests that true leadership requires humility before the greater structure of divine law. After witnessing these sobering realities, Enoch was lifted even higher into the fifth heaven, and the atmosphere changed in a way that filled him with both awe and trembling. Here he encountered hosts of angels, engaged in constant worship, their voices echoing through the heavens like waves of sound that carried both power and reverence. These beings were not passive observers, but active participants in sustaining the harmony of creation. Their praise was described not merely as music, but as an alignment of consciousness with the source of life itself. To modern ears, this might sound mystical, yet the deeper message becomes clearer when we think about the influence of collective focus in human societies. When groups of people unite around shared purpose, their energy can reshape entire communities, movements, and even nations. The unity Enoch saw among the heavenly hosts represented the highest form of that principle, where every being understood its role within the greater design. This unity created stability across the heavens, ensuring that the vast mechanisms of creation continued to operate in balance. Enoch realized that the strength of heaven did not come from domination, but from alignment with divine intention. The angels in this realm also revealed something extraordinary about humanity itself. They explained that human beings possess a unique position within creation because they are capable of conscious alignment with God's purpose, while still living within the physical world. This capacity gives humanity both tremendous potential and tremendous responsibility. It means that individuals can influence the direction of history through choices rooted in wisdom, courage, and faith. When Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, he did more than predict a famine. He provided a strategy that preserved life across multiple nations. His insight transformed a crisis into an opportunity for preparation and survival. In the same way, individuals alive today may hold insights capable of guiding societies through the uncertainties of technological and economic transformation. The difference between collapse and renewal often depends on whether leaders emerge who can interpret the signs of their time with clarity and humility. Enoch's vision suggests that heaven actively observes such moments, waiting for individuals who are willing to align their actions with a higher purpose. As the ascent continued, the sixth heaven revealed yet another dimension of divine administration. Here Enoch encountered powerful angelic rulers responsible for overseeing the destinies of nations and the unfolding of major events in human history. These beings appeared as guardians of cosmic governance, each assigned to monitor specific regions of the earth and the spiritual forces influencing them. The concept may challenge modern skepticism, yet it aligns with an ancient worldview shared by many cultures that recognized unseen influences behind geopolitical movements. When historians analyze the rise and fall of civilizations, they often focus on economic factors, military strategy, and cultural shifts. While these elements certainly play crucial roles, Enoch's account suggests that a deeper layer of influence exists beyond human perception. The decisions of kings and presidents may appear purely political, yet they unfold within a spiritual environment where unseen forces encourage wisdom or temptation, depending on the character of those involved. This perspective does not remove human agency, but emphasizes the importance of discernment among leaders. A nation guided by leaders who seek wisdom beyond their own ambitions can experience stability even in difficult times, while a nation led by arrogance often moves toward decline despite temporary success. Within this sixth heaven, Enoch witnessed councils where angels discussed the condition of humanity with solemn seriousness. Reports were given about injustice, oppression, and violence occurring across the earth, but also about acts of compassion and courage that shone like lights within the darkness. These discussions revealed that heaven does not observe humanity with indifference. It responds with deep concern for the direction civilizations choose. The angels spoke about the responsibility of nations to care for the vulnerable and to pursue justice rather than exploitation. When societies abandon these principles, they begin to undermine their own foundations. Looking at the modern world, it is difficult not to recognize how relevant that message remains. Economic systems generate enormous wealth, while millions struggle to survive. Technological innovation connects the planet, while also amplifying misinformation and division. And global power struggles create uncertainty about the future. The tension between progress and inequality mirrors the same moral crossroads that previous civilizations faced before their decline. Enoch's journey through the heavens reminds us that such crossroads are never purely political. They are spiritual turning points that determine whether societies move toward renewal or destruction. Finally, as Enoch approached the highest realm he would witness, the atmosphere became so intense with divine presence that words struggled to capture what he experienced. The seventh heaven stood above all, others like a throne room of ultimate authority, a place where the glory of God radiated with a brilliance that no earthly description could fully contain. Here Enoch saw the central reality around which the entire universe revolved. Every force, every angelic order, every law governing creation ultimately answered to the will of the Creator. It was a moment that transformed Enoch's understanding forever, because he realized that the complexity of the cosmos, the rise and fall of nations, and the personal journeys of individual lives were all connected to a single source of wisdom and power. The throne represented not tyranny, but perfect justice, a balance of mercy and righteousness that ensured the universe remained aligned with its original purpose. In that presence, Enoch understood why humility is the foundation of true leadership. No human authority, no empire, no technological advancement can stand independently from the greater order established by God. Standing before that throne, Enoch was reminded of a truth that echoes throughout the entire biblical narrative. God often prepares leaders long before the world recognizes them. Moses spent decades in obscurity before confronting Pharaoh. David tended sheep before becoming king. And Joseph endured betrayal and imprisonment before governing Egypt. Preparation often occurs in hidden places, where character is shaped and vision is refined. When you consider the uncertainties of our modern age, this pattern becomes deeply relevant. Many people today feel as if they are living through seasons of delay, watching their plans disrupted by economic shifts, technological changes, or unexpected challenges. Yet from heaven's perspective, those seasons may represent preparation rather than failure. The world is entering an era that will require leaders capable of navigating both spiritual and practical realities, individuals who understand technology, yet remain grounded in wisdom older than civilization itself. Enoch's journey through the seven heavens reveals that such leaders are not accidents of history. They are prepared through experiences that teach resilience, humility, and faith. And so as Enoch stood in the highest realm he had been allowed to see, he realized that his vision was not merely about the structure of heaven, but about the destiny of humanity itself. The heavens operate with order, accountability, and purpose, and those same principles are meant to guide life on earth. When societies align with that order, they flourish in ways that create stability and justice for generations. When they ignore it, chaos eventually exposes the weakness of their foundations. The world we inhabit today stands at such a threshold, where technological power expands faster than moral clarity, and where global systems face pressures they were never designed to withstand. Yet within that uncertainty lies an opportunity for awakening. Just as Joseph rose during a time of famine, and Daniel rose during a time of exile, individuals in this generation may discover that the very disruptions surrounding them are invitations to step into greater purpose. The journey of Enoch through the heavens serves as a reminder that behind every moment of history stands a divine structure watching, guiding, and preparing the future in ways humanity rarely perceives until the appointed time arrives. When Enoch stood within the overwhelming brilliance of the seventh heaven, something shifted inside his understanding that no earthly language could fully capture. Up until that moment, his journey had been filled with observation, watching the mechanics of creation, witnessing the consequences of rebellion, and listening to the counsels of angels who monitored the fate of nations. But here, in the highest realm, he was allowed to see. Observation transformed into revelation. The presence surrounding the throne was not merely light. It carried an intelligence so profound that it seemed to penetrate every layer of existence at once. Enoch described multitudes of beings surrounding that throne, each one radiating authority, yet bowing in complete humility before the source of all power. Their voices rose like waves of thunder and harmony combined, declaring truths about justice, mercy, and the ultimate purpose of creation. For Enoch, the most astonishing realization was that the entire universe, every star, every kingdom, every individual life, was part of a story being guided toward a final restoration. The chaos humanity often experiences on Earth did not originate from the throne, but from the misuse of freedom among both humans and rebellious spiritual forces. Yet even that chaos was not beyond redemption, because divine wisdom was constantly working to bring order out of disorder. This realization changed how Enoch interpreted everything he had seen below, because it meant that even the darkest chapters of human history existed within a larger plan, moving steadily toward fulfillment. The angels near the throne explained that the seven heavens were not merely locations, but levels of awareness and responsibility within the structure of creation. Each realm represented increasing proximity to divine wisdom, and each required greater alignment with truth in order to exist within it. Humanity, they said, was designed to grow in understanding over time, gradually awakening to the spiritual realities that govern life. Yet throughout history, many societies had forgotten that higher purpose, becoming distracted by power, wealth, and control. When civilizations forget their spiritual foundation, they often enter periods of confusion where technology advances faster than wisdom, and influence expands faster than accountability. Looking at the modern world, it becomes difficult to ignore how closely that description mirrors our current moment. Artificial intelligence now performs tasks that once required human creativity. Financial systems move trillions of dollars across digital networks in seconds, and information spreads across the globe faster than any previous generation could imagine. These developments hold incredible potential, yet they also raise profound questions about the direction humanity is choosing. Enoch's vision suggests that progress alone does not determine the health of a civilization. Alignment with divine principles does. Without that alignment, advancement can amplify the very problems societies hope to escape. In that seventh heaven, Enoch was also shown glimpses of future eras, moments when humanity would again face decisions that would shape the destiny of the earth. The visions were not presented like a simple timeline, but like flashes of possibility, revealing patterns that could unfold depending on the choices made by leaders and communities. One of the recurring images involved periods of economic upheaval that forced societies to reconsider their priorities. Wealth would concentrate in certain regions, while other populations struggled, creating tensions that demanded new systems of justice and cooperation. Listening to these descriptions, it becomes impossible not to think about the global shifts happening today. Entire industries are transforming as automation replaces traditional labor, and nations compete fiercely to control emerging technologies that will define the next century. For many individuals, this transformation feels like instability. Yet, from another perspective, it may represent a necessary disruption that exposes weaknesses within existing systems. Just as Joseph used a period of famine to restructure Egypt's economy and preserve surrounding nations, future leaders may need similar wisdom to guide societies through transitions we are only beginning to understand. Enoch was then shown something even more personal, something that spoke directly to the hidden struggles of individuals living through uncertain times. He saw people scattered across generations who felt overlooked, misunderstood, or delayed in their journeys. Many had experienced seasons that looked like failure from the outside, lost opportunities, broken relationships, careers that collapsed without warning. Yet from heaven's vantage point, those seasons were revealed as preparation. Character was being refined through hardship. Resilience was being formed through disappointment, and clarity of purpose was emerging through moments of solitude. The pattern mirrored the stories found throughout Scripture, where the most influential leaders often spent years in obscurity before their calling became visible. Joseph endured slavery and imprisonment before he interpreted Pharaoh's dreams. David fled through wilderness caves before he ever wore a crown. Even Moses spent decades tending sheep before confronting the empire of Egypt. Heaven's perspective on preparation is radically different from the world's obsession with immediate success. What looks like delay on earth often becomes the training ground for responsibilities that require deep maturity. From the heights of the seventh heaven, Enoch also saw the earth itself in a way that transformed his perception of humanity. The continents appeared like living landscapes, filled with communities striving to survive, innovate, and build meaning within the brief span of human life. Cities pulsed with activity, governments negotiated power, and individuals pursued dreams shaped by their culture and circumstances. Yet above all those movements hovered a quiet question. Would humanity learn to harmonize its growing knowledge with spiritual wisdom? The angels explained that the greatest danger for any generation is the illusion of independence from the Creator. When societies believe they no longer need divine guidance, they often begin constructing systems that appear strong but lack moral foundation. Eventually, those systems encounter crises that reveal their fragility. The collapse may come through economic shocks, environmental disasters, political turmoil, or social unrest, but the underlying cause remains the same. Structures built without spiritual alignment cannot sustain themselves indefinitely. Enoch realized that the warnings contained in his visions were not meant to inspire fear, but to invite reflection. The conversation between Enoch and the angels then turned toward the role of prophetic insight within human history. Prophets, they explained, were not fortune tellers predicting events like a script already written. Instead, they were interpreters of patterns, individuals who could perceive the spiritual forces shaping the direction of civilizations. By revealing those patterns, prophets gave societies an opportunity to change course before consequences became irreversible. This understanding casts a new light on many biblical stories that people often read only as ancient narratives. When Joseph interpreted dreams about famine, he was not simply predicting disaster. He was providing knowledge that allowed Egypt to prepare and survive. When Daniel advised kings in Babylon, he revealed how arrogance and injustice would eventually undermine even the most powerful empire. Enoch's role followed the same tradition, except his message extended far beyond his own generation. The structure of the heavens he described served as a reminder that humanity's actions always occur within a greater moral framework. Ignoring that framework does not eliminate it. It only postpones the moment when its consequences become visible. As Enoch absorbed these revelations, he began to understand why his brief mention in Genesis carried such mystery. Scripture simply states that he walked with God and then was taken, leaving readers to wonder what kind of life produced such an extraordinary ending. Walking with God, as Enoch experienced it, meant aligning one's awareness with the deeper realities guiding creation. It required humility, curiosity, and courage to seek truth beyond the immediate concerns of daily survival. In many ways, the invitation to walk with God remains available to every generation, though it often appears in subtle forms. Moments of crisis, disruption, or uncertainty can awaken questions that ordinary routines keep hidden. When familiar systems begin to shake, people start looking for wisdom that transcends temporary solutions. That is precisely the kind of moment our modern world seems to be entering now. The acceleration of technology, the transformation of global economies, and the rise of new cultural identities across the African diaspora and beyond are creating conditions that demand deeper reflection about humanity's direction. Enoch saw that within such moments a new kind of leadership often emerges. Leaders who combine practical intelligence with spiritual awareness. These individuals understand how systems operate, but also recognize the moral responsibilities attached to influence. They are not driven solely by ambition or profit, but by a sense of stewardship for the future. Throughout history, such leaders have appeared during turning points, when old structures no longer function effectively. Joseph guided Egypt through famine by implementing policies that preserved life rather than exploiting crisis for personal gain. Esther used her position within a foreign empire to protect her people when they faced annihilation. These stories reveal that leadership grounded in spiritual awareness can transform even the most dangerous situations into opportunities for renewal. Enoch's vision suggested that similar leaders would be needed in future eras when humanity confronted challenges on a global scale. Another profound insight emerged as Enoch listened to the voices surrounding the throne. The angels spoke about the interconnectedness of humanity, emphasizing that the destiny of one region often influences the stability of others. No nation exists in complete isolation, because trade, culture, and shared resources bind the world together in ways that become especially visible during crisis. This principle resonates strongly in the modern age of globalization, where economic shocks in one part of the world can ripple across continents within days. The interconnected nature of the global economy creates both vulnerability and opportunity. It means that decisions made by leaders in one country can affect the livelihoods of people thousands of miles away. Enoch realized that this interconnectedness reflects a deeper spiritual truth. Humanity was always meant to function as a family of nations cooperating under divine guidance. When that cooperation breaks down, competition can escalate into conflict that harms everyone involved. But when nations recognize their shared responsibility for the earth, they can create systems that support stability and prosperity across generations. Enoch also perceived that the awakening of spiritual identity among marginalized communities played a crucial role in shaping future history. Throughout time, people who experienced oppression often developed a deep awareness of divine justice because they depended on hope beyond earthly systems. Their resilience preserved cultural wisdom that later generations would rediscover during times of transformation. Across the African diaspora and other communities shaped by struggle, spiritual traditions have often carried messages of endurance, faith, and liberation. These traditions remind humanity that dignity does not originate from social status, but from the divine image present within every person. Enoch saw that such awareness would become increasingly important as the world entered eras where technology could either empower or dehumanize populations, depending on how it was used. Societies that remember the sacred value of human life will guide innovation toward healing and opportunity, while societies that forget this principle risk creating systems that prioritize efficiency over compassion. As the vision continued, Enoch sensed that his time in the highest heaven was approaching its end. The brilliance of the throne remained overwhelming, yet the message he carried back to the earth was becoming clearer with every passing moment. Humanity's future was not predetermined in a rigid sense, but it unfolded within boundaries established by divine justice and wisdom. Choices made by individuals and nations could either align with that structure or resist it, and the results of those choices would shape history. The world Enoch saw from above was filled with both danger and promise, because the same intelligence that created galaxies also placed within humanity the capacity for creativity, compassion, and leadership. The question that remained was whether people would awaken to that responsibility before crisis forced them to confront it. For Enoch, the answer depended on whether individuals were willing to seek wisdom beyond the noise of everyday life. Before his departure, the angels reminded him that his story would echo through generations, not because of his personal significance, but because of the truths revealed through his journey. The heavens exist in layers of increasing awareness, each one reflecting a deeper understanding of divine order. Humanity stands at the threshold between the visible and invisible worlds, capable of choosing whether to live in harmony with that order or struggle against it. Enoch's ascent served as a reminder that the universe is far more structured and purposeful than human eyes alone can perceive. Even in periods when the earth appears overwhelmed by conflict and uncertainty, the higher realms remain steady, guiding the long arc of history toward restoration. As Enoch prepared to return from his vision, he understood that the message he carried would challenge future generations to reconsider their assumptions about power, progress, and destiny. The real question was not whether heaven existed in multiple realms, but whether humanity would learn to live with the wisdom required to approach them. As Enoch prepared to descend from the heights of the seventh heaven, the weight of everything he had witnessed settled into his spirit like a message meant for generations far beyond his own lifetime. The structure of the heavens was not revealed merely to satisfy curiosity about the unseen world. It was a mirror reflecting the order that humanity was meant to pursue on earth. Every realm he had traveled through showed a principle that applied directly to human life. The first heavens revealed the discipline and precision of creation, reminding humanity that existence itself depends on balance and responsibility. The middle realms exposed the consequences of corruption, warning that knowledge without wisdom leads civilizations toward destruction. And the highest heaven revealed the throne, where justice and mercy flow together, demonstrating that ultimate authority belongs not to kings or governments, but to the Creator who established the universe. Enoch understood that these revelations would become increasingly relevant during times when humanity felt overwhelmed by change and uncertainty. In moments when systems people trusted begin to falter, the temptation is to believe that everything is collapsing into chaos. Yet what Enoch saw suggested something very different, that behind the shaking of earthly systems there remains a stable order that cannot be disrupted by human mistakes. The challenge for every generation is learning how to realign itself with that higher order before the consequences of misalignment become too severe. When Enoch returned to the awareness of the earthly world, he carried a perspective that few people in history had ever possessed. Imagine standing among ordinary communities after witnessing the machinery of the cosmos and the councils of heaven. The markets, the arguments, the ambitions of human society must have seemed small compared to the vast systems guiding creation. Yet Enoch did not withdraw from humanity in despair. Instead, he shared what he had learned, because he understood that knowledge of divine order could help people navigate the storms that inevitably arise within history. Throughout every age there are moments when entire populations feel as though they are standing at the edge of transformation. Empires expand and collapse, Technologies redefine how people work and communicate, and cultural identities shift as communities rediscover their deeper roots. Our own generation stands inside such a moment right now. Artificial intelligence is reshaping industries faster than many workers can adapt. Global economic alliances are shifting in ways that challenge long-established powers, and millions of people are questioning the values that once defined their societies. To some observers, these changes look like instability, but to those who study prophetic patterns, they resemble the early stages of a massive transition. The story of Joseph offers one of the clearest examples of how divine preparation intersects with global upheaval. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, nothing about his situation suggested future leadership. Years of imprisonment followed, seasons when it seemed that every dream he had received from God had been buried under injustice. Yet those years refined his ability to interpret patterns and remain faithful under pressure. By the time Pharaoh faced troubling dreams about famine, Joseph possessed exactly the insight required to guide an entire civilization through crisis. What looked like tragedy had actually been preparation for responsibility that extended far beyond Joseph's personal life. When we place that story beside Enoch's vision of heaven's structure, a powerful connection appears. The same divine order that governs the movement of stars also shapes the preparation of leaders. Difficult seasons are rarely meaningless. They often cultivate the resilience and wisdom required for future influence. Many individuals living today are experiencing their own versions of the pit before the palace. Moments when careers stall, plans collapse, or circumstances force them to rethink their direction. Yet within those moments, the seeds of greater purpose may already be forming. Enoch's revelations about the Watchers and the consequences of misused knowledge also carry profound significance for the modern age. Humanity now possesses technological capabilities that previous generations could scarcely imagine. Artificial intelligence analyzes enormous volumes of data in seconds. Biotechnology manipulates the building blocks of life, and digital networks connect billions of people across continents in real time. These innovations hold the potential to solve problems that once seemed impossible, from medical breakthroughs to efficient energy systems. But they also create ethical dilemmas that humanity has never faced before. Who decides how powerful technologies should be used? What safeguards prevent them from amplifying inequality or surveillance? Enoch's warning about knowledge detached from divine wisdom echoes loudly within these questions. Progress alone cannot guarantee a better future. It must be guided by moral clarity and humility. Without those qualities, the same discoveries that promise advancement can accelerate instability. As global systems evolve, another pattern becomes visible, one that Enoch glimpsed when he saw the interconnected nature of humanity from above. No nation truly stands alone anymore. Economic supply chains weave continents together, cultural movements travel through digital platforms, and crises in one region ripple across the entire planet. When financial markets tremble in one part of the world, people thousands of miles away feel the effects within days. This interconnected reality means that the destiny of nations increasingly depends on cooperation rather than domination. Enoch's vision of heavenly councils discussing the condition of humanity suggests the Creator always intended the world to function as a network of communities supporting one another. When leaders pursue only narrow self-interest, the system becomes unstable. But when they recognize the shared responsibility of stewardship, stability becomes possible. The next generation of leadership will likely emerge from individuals who understand this interconnected vision. People who can bridge cultures, technologies, and spiritual wisdom to create solutions that benefit more than a single group. Another layer of Enoch's message speaks directly to communities that have endured long histories of struggle and displacement. Across the African diaspora and many other regions shaped by oppression, spiritual traditions have preserved powerful reminders that identity does not come from the approval of empires. It comes from the divine image placed within every human being. Throughout centuries of hardship, faith carried songs of hope, stories of liberation, and visions of justice that refused to disappear, even when circumstances seemed hopeless. Enoch's encounter with heaven's order reinforces the idea that dignity is not determined by social hierarchy, but by spiritual purpose. In fact, many prophetic movements throughout history have emerged from communities that society underestimated or ignored. Their resilience allowed them to see possibilities others overlooked. As the world moves through technological and cultural transformation, these voices may once again play a crucial role in reminding humanity of its spiritual roots. The final lesson Enoch carried from the seventh heaven was perhaps the most challenging of all, the realization that humanity must choose whether to awaken or remain asleep to the deeper structure of reality. Walking with God, as Enoch experienced it, requires more than occasional belief. It demands a conscious alignment with truth in everyday decisions. This alignment affects how people lead businesses, how governments exercise power, how families nurture the next generation, and how individuals treat those who appear different from themselves. When societies embrace this alignment, they cultivate justice and creativity that ripple across generations. When they ignore it, the imbalance eventually produces crises that force a reevaluation of priorities. Our era appears to be approaching such a crossroads. Rapid technological advancement offers unprecedented opportunities, yet it also exposes weaknesses in moral frameworks that were never designed for such complexity. The question facing humanity is whether wisdom will grow at the same pace as innovation. Enoch's journey through the seven heavens reveals that the universe itself operates as a vast classroom, where humanity learns the consequences of its choices. Each generation inherits knowledge from the past, while contributing new discoveries that shape the future. Some eras are remembered for their creativity and courage, while others become cautionary tales about arrogance and neglect. The difference often depends on whether people remain connected to the spiritual principles that sustain life. When Joseph stored grain during years of abundance, he was applying a principle of stewardship that saved millions from starvation. When leaders ignore similar wisdom today, failing to prepare for economic or environmental challenges, the consequences can affect entire nations. Enoch's message reminds us that foresight and humility are not merely personal virtues. They are essential for the survival of civilizations. As the narrative of Enoch spread through ancient communities, it stirred curiosity and debate about the nature of heaven and humanity's place within creation. Some traditions preserved the text, while others set it aside. Yet the ideas it carried continued to influence generations of thinkers and believers. The concept of multiple heavens shaped early Jewish and Christian understanding of the cosmos, inspiring reflections about how spiritual realities intersect with everyday life. But beyond theology, the deeper power of Enoch's vision lies in its invitation to see the world differently. Instead of interpreting history as a series of random accidents, it encourages people to look for patterns that reveal purpose. Instead of viewing hardship as meaningless suffering, it suggests that adversity can prepare individuals for responsibilities they cannot yet imagine. And instead of assuming that human power determines the ultimate outcome of events, it points toward a higher authority, guiding the long arc of history. For viewers listening to this story today, the question becomes deeply personal. What if the disruptions happening around us are not simply signs of decline, but signals of preparation? What if the uncertainty people feel about the future is actually an invitation to develop new forms of leadership rooted in wisdom rather than fear? Every generation receives moments when the old world begins to shift and a new one quietly emerges from the shadows. Those who recognize the transition early often become the architects of what follows. Joseph recognized the meaning of Pharaoh's dreams and prepared Egypt before famine arrived. Daniel interpreted the writing on the wall when Babylon's arrogance reached its peak. Enoch, long before them, revealed that the heavens themselves operate according to patterns that reward alignment and expose corruption. In the end, the mystery surrounding Enoch's life remains one of the most fascinating threads in the tapestry of biblical history. A man mentioned in only a few verses of Genesis became the center of a vision that stretches across the entire universe. His journey through the seven heavens invites us to reconsider the boundaries between the visible and invisible worlds. It challenges modern assumptions that reality can be fully explained through material observation alone. And perhaps, most importantly, it reminds humanity that the Creator who designed galaxies also pays attention to the decisions made in ordinary human lives. The same order that guides the stars is present in the quiet preparation of individuals who may one day influence nations. So, as the world continues to move through rapid transformation, economically, technologically, and spiritually, the story of Enoch stands like a beacon pointing toward a deeper understanding. The heavens are not distant abstractions. They are layers of reality reflecting principles meant to guide life on earth. When humanity remembers those principles, it discovers strength even in times of uncertainty. When it forgets them, crises arise that demand rediscovery. The choice belongs to every generation, and perhaps the greatest lesson from Enoch's ascent is this: the journey toward higher understanding does not begin in the sky, but in the willingness of individuals to walk with God right they are, trusting that even the most difficult seasons may be preparing them for purposes that stretch far beyond the limits of their current horizon.